Hi guys, my name is Emily. Welcome back. Today I'm going to be filming my April wrap-up. I had a pretty decent reading month considering I read two fairly chunky books. I finished off The Wastelands by Stephen King. Now this is the third book in the Dark Tower series. This is a part of my hashtag DT Project 17, and I am a little bit behind, not on reading at this point, but on editing. I have had a crazy busy month at work again, and just finding the time to edit has been really stressful. Look forward to my actual thoughts on this from past Emily when you see that video in the future. The next book I read in April was The Female of the Species by Mindy McGinnis. So this is about a girl whose sister was murdered and who has lived the rest of her life in this small town as the sister of the girl who was murdered. And she is very guarded, understandably so, because, you know, it's a huge family trauma to have lost that. And there's a lot of commentary on consent and rape culture and women's bodies. It was a really beautiful story. I was totally surprised by the ending because I really thought I had it figured out. It is a really good read. It's a read to get you thinking, and I would highly recommend it, although I will give you trigger warnings for violence and sexual assault. The next book I read was The Lottery's +1 by Emma Donoghue. Now, I do have a review for this in which I talk about the pros and cons of this book. Uncritically speaking, I loved this. This captured summer, this captured Toronto, this has all the diversity that I want. The premise here is that we have two queer couples who come together to co-parent both adoptive and biological children. And everything sort of gets brought into question when one of the grandfathers who is ailing has to come live in this household, and he is incredibly conservative and really rude and really hard to deal with. So it's a book that explores difference and acceptance and love. It does do something problematic in misgendering Brian, but in the review I do talk about why I think that might be something that we can live with, like critically live with, while also sort of praising everything else that this book does. So more in that review later. Then I read Percy Jackson and the Olympians by Riordan. This is the story of Percy, who finds out he's a demigod, and he ends up going on an adventure to return Zeus's lightning bolt, which has been stolen. And it's just a fun, fast-paced book that involves a lot of Greek mythology. I definitely would like to finish off this series and to keep moving forward with Riordan's writing, because I believe it is Magnus Chase, the son of Asgard, has won a Stonewall Award for its queer character. So I would like to see Riordan's later works, and I think it might be important to sort of see the foundation of his writing and to watch him grow rather than just starting with the series that has won the award. I don't know if that makes sense, but I often find it weird to go back to authors' earlier works, so I'd rather start at the beginning. This was fun, and I enjoyed it, and if you haven't read it and you have some young people in your life, I think it is a fun read, and I think it would make a fun summer read. The next book I read was part of the hashtag DT Project 17 extra texts, and that is The Wizard of Oz by L. Frank Baum. This, I heard, influenced the Dark Tower series, and I included it to read. This was kind of sort of painful to read because it's an American fairy tale. Like, that's definitely what Baum was trying to do, was make an American fairy tale. Things happen in threes. When Dorothy visited the wizard, and like then you knew that the Lion and the Scarecrow and the Tin Man were all going to visit the wizard and we're going to have similar results, like, I skimmed it. I couldn't do it. I couldn't read it. And as it turns out, for the Dark Tower project, it seems like King was pulling more from the movie than from the book anyway, because they all put on the iconic ruby slippers, and of course that is the movie version of the shoes. These are silver slippers. I should have watched the movie instead of the book, but whatever. I will be talking more about The Wizard of Oz with the Dark Tower videos, so keep an eye out for that if you're interested in how The Wizard of Oz sort of connects to the Dark Tower series and where I see those links being made. The next book I have here is Wizard and Glass, which is the fourth book in the Dark Tower series by Stephen King. This, I think, is my favorite book so far. So we get Roland's backstory. Now this does feel a little bit weird because we start out with it basically immediately overlapping with the end of book 3, breaking into a story within a story. So we're heading back into Roland's past, and then we move back into the present narrative, back into the quest for the Dark Tower. So it felt kind of choppy, but I get that all of the parts were important for developing the characters, for pushing the narrative forward. I really needed Roland's backstory, and I was so thankful to finally get it. I think it would be fun just to read the Roland's backstory chapter by itself. So I am very excited to talk about this, and you will see that hopefully this month. I am really behind in my editing, like I said. A lot of these things are filmed, but not edited. It's a lot for one person to do, right? Like, especially because I'm trying to get better at editing, so I'm watching like tutorials on my editing program, and like I'm trying out new things, and sometimes it doesn't work. So all of these things are filmed. It may involve like crazy amounts of videos coming out this month, but I'm going to try and catch up because I realize we're behind. This is April's read, and I have the videos for March's read, and they're still not published, and it's May. Finally, I concluded my May with Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine by Gail Honeyman. This is something I was sent by Penguin Random House Canada in exchange for an honest review. This is something I received through the channel, not through work, because I am in contact with the publishing houses in two ways, I guess. One as an Indigo employee and one as a booktuber. This book comes out on May 9th. Eleanor Oliphant is an oddball. That's how they describe her on the back. Some trigger warnings that need to happen with this book. Trigger warnings for abuse, for violence, for sexual assault, for self-harm, and I think that you need to know these things going in. Meet Eleanor initially in her day-to-day life. You find out she's very socially isolated, has very poor social skills, and I personally found her a really tough character to like, but she kept dropping these really blunt hints about her traumas, which made me interested to keep reading, and then as I kept reading, I got more and more attached to Eleanor as I became more and more sympathetic. The thing is, I don't know how to sell this to people. Eleanor is not a likable character at first. In fact, it wasn't until quite a ways in that I started to sympathize with Eleanor. So I really don't know what I'm going to put together for this review. If you've seen the review, yay me, I did it. So these are the books that I read in April. Let me know in the comments down below what your favorite April read was. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you soon. Bye.